And we are live. Yay. I was
Woo!
going to say good morning, but it's not morning for us. It is afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Rena, I see you're asking for the stage chat. If you just look to the top right, you'll see event, stage, and direct messages. Please go to stage, and that's where we'll do all our chatting. I will still try to go in between both, but let's do it that way. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone, for coming. And we are going to get started. We're diving right in because we want to give you the 2 hours of full content that Candace has prepared for us. I hope you are ready to rock 2021. I am. If you look in the stage chat, there is a link to a document that you should download. We will also send it to you after the fact, but it's a workbook that you can download, and you're going to be able to work through it throughout the. Oh, hey, Carlina, throughout the workshop. So everyone, get ready to rock. Candace, I am going to give you the floor, and I'm going
Okay.
to back out. I have my pen ready and I'm ready to write. And, if you have questions throughout, I'm sure Candace will jump in and answer, but I'm going to leave everything to her because she's the expert.
All right. Thank you, Dwania. I'm super excited about this. Um, this is something I am very passionate about. Change and everything good. So some of you have probably been in sessions with me before, some of you haven't. I am very open to questions throughout. It's not going to mess me up. So if you have questions, be sure to pop them into the stage chat. I'm going to be looking at that periodically throughout. I love to have conversations. I know it's a small group today, but you're going to get out of it what you put into it. I can talk for 2 hours just about what I have planned to talk about. I could talk about marketing for 3 days straight if I could stay awake. Um, but what I really want is for you to get a really actionable plan for your business. I want you to be able to ask questions that are specific to your industry. I just want you to be able to walk out of this feeling really empowered about 2021, as empowered as I feel about this. So, without further ado, we are going to get started. We're going to talk about planning for 2021. We're going to ask some tough questions today. Is everybody ready for this? Pop it in the chat, say yes. If you're not ready for this, I'm going to cry. Yes. I got one yes. One person is very ready for this. And you know what? I'm okay with that. We'll start with one. All right. So, a little bit about me. Excellent. Carlina, you're ready as well. Love it. Sandra is ready. Amazing. Okay. So basically, just a little bit about me. Tammy, love it. You're ready. I am the founding partner at Songbird Marketing Communications, and we specialize in helping small and medium-sized businesses to really connect with their audiences and get creative and figure out exactly who they are as a brand, and figure out the best ways to connect with their audience. You can see a long list on there. We're not going to go through all of that. This is not about me, this presentation, but I am going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing as a business, even to get ready for 2021 as well, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't practicing what I preach. So let's talk about New Year's resolutions. Who has ever set a New Year's resolution? Anybody? January comes around, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to eat healthier. New ones here. I want to keep my house cleaner because of the pandemic. I want to try to get outside more in the winter. I know winter scares many people. I sometimes feel like New Year's resolutions are like holding a sparkler. In January, where yeah, you did it once, but you don't do them anymore. Yeah, they're like holding a sparkler. You get super excited about it when you first light the sparkler, and there's that little spark that pops off the top, and then it's sparkling all down. And as it gets closer to your hands, it kind of starts fizzling out a little bit. It's not quite as strong. And if you're holding it too high, then maybe it starts burning your hands. So you feel like, I'm just gonna drop it. Fizzles out. No one's holding it. No one's relighting it. That's just the way it is. You know, you don't want this plan to be like all of those New Year's resolutions. I did New Year's resolutions at one point, and I feel like it didn't really work for me. So I find that I set goals for myself throughout the year. I think I saw, yeah, Rena, you said setting throughout the year and not just once a year. Absolutely. It's a really good way to look at it. Even myself, I started a weight loss journey 2 months ago because I didn't want to be that person in January that started in January. And then by March, I was like, yeah, I'm done. Or February or end of January. So it's really good. You're absolutely right to set goals as you go. But for right now, we are looking at planning for 2021. And so we are going to talk about setting goals for 2021 for your business, but we're going to talk about how to do it so that you can keep things going throughout the year so that this plan isn't just like that sparkler and fizzles out as soon as it gets closer to your hands. So if we're going to look forward, we absolutely have to look back. Who has goals that they set for 2020? You're going to brush your business plan off, brush the dust off, open it up from Dropbox, open up that PDF you created, pull out that notebook. Your business goals for 2020 probably look very different at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year. Did anyone's business change throughout the year? 2020 was a big one. So, for us, our business changed in that we started doing a lot more online. We all had to shift. You're right. CSBW, you guys had to shift to go more, you had to go all online. For us, we had a huge dip in the middle of the year because people were panicking. And then we had to kind of adjust our approach so we could grow, in the second half of the year. So, your business changed. What about your marketing? Did your marketing change throughout the year? Yeah, CJ, you had to pivot online as well. People aren't doing any in-person things anymore. You even look at some of the large stores. Some of them aren't even letting you go into the store anymore. I was looking at an influencer online yesterday, and they went and they were doing something for Kitchen Stuff Plus, and Kitchen Stuff Plus isn't even letting you walk through the aisles at that location anymore. You literally put an order in online, and you go and you pick it up. And people are having to shift everything online. You even look at Bulk Barn. I picked up an order from Bulk Barn the other day because I ordered online. They weren't online before. Everyone has had to shift. There's a lot more noise online. Yeah, Carlina, your screen time has gone up exponentially. We're on screens right now. This is where we're consuming all of our content. I bought a magazine for the first time in like 8 months. I just didn't even want to buy anything just because I was afraid that someone had touched it in the store. Maybe that's my own anxieties, but I've been pretty locked down on this because we've been hanging out with my parents a little bit because they're at risk and we've been helping them out. But yeah, at the beginning of the year, Tammy, you're right. It was all about trade shows, and then it has shifted online. Trade shows have gone online. More people are doing advertising. Yeah, Dwayne, you have a station at your front door. I feel like the anxiety has kind of allowed us to shift things faster than we normally would have because it was out of necessity. So we all had to adapt. And then we had to realign our 2020 business goals with our 2020 marketing goals. And then we had to realign them again at the end of the year. And so if you actually want to look forward, then you have to look back. Did your business change? Did your marketing change? And it's important to actually identify what those changes were specifically. And if you are following along in the workbook, the link is at the beginning. At this point, you can identify some of your 2020 business goals, identify some of the changes that you had throughout. Again, you will get this. You can fill this out later, but I just wanted to make sure that you had something if you wanted to take notes on a document. It's completely up to you. So your 2020 marketing goals, what did some people want to accomplish with their marketing in 2020? I know for us, we were looking at bringing on a few more large clients. So we do a mixture of larger clients that are ongoing projects, they're monthly things, along with a few kind of projects. So we kind of do these ongoing retainers, and then we also do short-term projects every month. And so our goal for 2020 was to try to do some things that would allow us to bring on a few more larger clients throughout the year. And then of course the pandemic hit, and we're like, what is going on with our business? So we had to shift our marketing approach. We shifted to focus even more on small business than we ever have before, because small business has been hit hard. So we've been working a lot more with small businesses to help them get creative and step out of the noise and try to kind of be places their competitors aren't. And so that's how we shifted. And that's kind of, again, our business goals initially were to find those larger clients, and then our marketing was aligned with that. And then we decided to shift. So then we were focusing even more on small business, and our marketing started aligning with that a little bit more. So we started doing more online content. We started doing an IGTV series that was really tips and tricks. We started doing more online events as well that are geared towards small business, even more than we did before. We've done a free masterclass every month. And so all of our marketing has shifted to align with our changes that we were doing in 2020. And so if you're going to move forward, you have to look at how your business has changed, and you have to look at why you changed. Okay. Back in here. So what were some of your 2020 business and marketing goals? Just pop them in the chat. Take a second to do that. I'm going to take a sip of water while you're doing that, very dramatically. What were some of your marketing goals, some of your business goals for 2020? Coming in. Can be quick. Yeah, Ivana, you said you had to change your whole business plan. How did things change? I love that. The word for 2020 was flourish and then pivot. Carlina, to do events in 3 new cities worldwide. Okay, yep. Yep, and how did things change for you then? I know you've been doing a lot more online, because I've seen you do some online. Yeah, virtual equals done. Yeah, absolutely. You know, you went worldwide, so 3 new cities, but worldwide. CJ, you wanted to pivot more online. The pandemic just upped the game much sooner. Absolutely. You know, we've been working with a lot of businesses that was kind of, you know, the 5-year plan was that they would have Canadian-wide shipping or North American-wide shipping. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like, how do we make this happen in a few weeks? So everyone is kind of scrambled. And you know what? Flourish, thrive, pivot, whatever word that you want to use, that is how small business is going to stand out. That is how small business is going to grow stronger. And we all do have to stick together as a community. Absolutely. Yeah, more public speaking. Dwayne, I know we spoke about that. Get out and network with local businesses. Sandra, have you been able to do that still, even though the pandemic has hit? How has that changed for you? These are great. These are great small business goals. These are great 2020 business goals. And when I say small business, I don't mean that our business is small. I just mean in size, not in power. Small business is powerful. We're more agile than the big guys for sure. Okay, so we looked at our goals. You know, now be honest with yourself. As you were pivoting, did you find challenges? Did you come up against challenges? Did you find that it was harder to pivot than you had hoped? Did you find that your customers were on board with you? Yeah, Sandra, you found online networking groups. That's great. Yeah, there's lots of different opportunities out there, but sometimes it can be a little bit harder to find them. And we have to ask ourselves these questions, you know, the challenges. What were the challenges? Yeah, Kes, you had to, you know, you wanted to do more networking, but you had to change your gears to go online. Absolutely. And I feel like, you know, now that we're all shifting online, people are just getting fatigued. You know, Carlina, you said not having certainty when or if venues would open, and apprehensive from some clients to go online. Yeah, absolutely. You know, with a couple of our clients, we were dealing with, well, it's illegal now, so I'm not going to say which clients, but some issues with venues and things like that. And it's a scary time for a lot of people. And overcoming those challenges is a hard one for sure. Let's see here. Ivana, change location, clinical room online. Yeah, healthcare. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Pain management and wellness. Definitely. Some students didn't or wouldn't shift to online. That's an interesting one. We work with a music school, and they found as well that some people just were like, no, I want to come in person. And so, you have to shift and try to appease everyone. Yeah, everyone's moving to digital. There's so much noise. How do you cut through it? I started going to events at the beginning of all this, and some of them had like 100 people at them online. And now by the end of it, it's like you're lucky if 15, 20 people show up. So you have to find ways to really create value and be unique. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. This is just us looking back before we look forward. I promise there's more to come. I've packed so much into this. I'm hoping we get through everything because I want to make sure that we get specific here too. Yeah, online. Fighting against the big guys with their big budgets. Big budgets. But you know what? You can still be grassroots and you can still be scrappy online. That's the beauty of having things available to you, like social media, and even communities like Canadian Small Business Women and some of the small business communities that are both local, national, international. So you can definitely find ways to really utilize these networks as well, and be smart about it. But yeah, there is a lot more noise. And for us, that seems to be the biggest complaint that people have is there's so many other people out there doing this. So how am I supposed to compete with that? And so we are going to talk about that a little bit down the line. I'm glad that we're all on the same page. Still looking back. So what I want you to do, in the workbook, there is a chart that you can fill in at this point, but we're going to talk about it right now. We're going to look back and we're going to look at tactics. We're going to look at the metrics that you use to measure them, your execution phase, your data. The word data scares many people. And then we're going to talk about debrief. This is basically the cycle that you should be taking throughout the year. How many people look at all of these different steps when they're actually executing a marketing plan? How many people at all of the steps? Ha, Carlina, put on those glasses. Put on those glasses, girl. Data and metrics are great. Some people are really scared of them. How many people do all of these things? Yeah, you don't do it enough. Yeah, KPIs. Yeah, definitely. So what I find is that some people pick and choose what they want from this cycle. And so they'll look at tactics, but they won't create a strategy. So they'll maybe pick one or two tactics and haven't really identified exactly what metrics they want to use. So they'll jump through to the execution phase just because they really want to get to it. And then you kind of muddle through a little bit of data because there's some insights available in various places. And then you don't really look at the debrief section. Most people skip debrief completely because if something works, they'll just continue doing it without actually looking at why. Or if it doesn't work, they'll kind of get bored with it. And it's like that sparkler and they'll just throw it on the floor and they'll move on. So that's great. Processing times. Yeah, that's a hard one. Kes, you don't use all of these. You know what? You're not alone. But this is the thing. In 2020, what you want to do is you actually want to think about this as you're building your strategy. And so what we're looking at here is your tactics. These are all the marketing tactics that you use. So like social media, email marketing, if you're doing influencer marketing, if you do media relations, if you're doing any experiential You can still do experiential during COVID. You can just get creative with it. You can do online events. All of those different things are tactics. But the one thing you have to remember is they have to fit together. And we're going to talk about that more as we're talking about 2021 building. But look back on the tactics that you used in 2020. What kinds of things did you do to market to your audience? So think about it, write it in your workbook, write it in your notebook, write it in the chat. I would love to hear some of the things that you're doing to market to your audience. And then what you want to look at is what metrics did you use to figure out if they were successful or not? What were you tracking along the way? A lot of people are, not familiar with these, so obviously I need to be here. Amazing. So your metrics, and we're going to talk more about metrics because most people forget to actually look at metrics. We're going to talk about them in terms of your 2020 tactics. But for 2021, it's really hard to say that sometimes. 2020, we look at tactics and our metrics. So what kind of tactics did you use this year? I'm waiting for people to drop some stuff in the chat here. I see maybe some comments in. Nope, we're good. What kind of things did you do in your 2020 marketing plan? Did you use social media? What kind of metrics were you looking at with that? Did you set goals for yourself that were associated with those metrics? Social media for sure. What kind of goals did you have for your social media? Were you looking to grow your community? Obviously numbers are vanity sometimes when it comes to social media and your community size. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but your metrics should be associated with whatever it was that you're looking to be successful for. You started pulling your event audience more. Absolutely. That's really great. We know a lot of people, again, that started doing more things like email newsletters. We started, a lot of different things like that. And then the execution phase. How did that go for you? When you were looking at execution, did you have your metrics in mind? You want to be honest with yourself when you're answering this question. And then how many times did you look at the data? Carlina, I know you looked at the data a lot because you love data. LinkedIn, Facebook, and website blogs. Absolutely. Social media, e-newsletter, word of mouth, monthly events, increase the amount I was doing, emails, surveys. Yeah, definitely. These are all great things. And it's interesting that you say you did what you usually did. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about getting out of our comfort zone in a little bit. So these are all great. The tactics you have in place, what were the metrics that you were using to make sure that you were being successful? Make sure that you're writing those down. Make sure you're tracking them regularly. If you weren't in 2020, then we're going to have to just kind of muddle around in our mind. But the important part here, after you've gone through creating your strategy, looking at your metrics and tracking and seeing which ones that you're gonna track based on your goals, executing the strategy, pulling that data regularly, is the debrief. This is the most important part at the end of the year as you're planning for next year. What worked? What didn't? Before you can fix something, you have to figure out what's broken. And that's the biggest thing. And sometimes it might not even be broken. Sometimes it might just be something that you have to tweak. You don't have to throw something out if it's broken. You can fix it. You can tweak it. If there's a toy that's broken, you don't necessarily, if your laptop is broken, you don't throw it out. You try to fix it first. Your marketing plan should be the same way. That's why we look back first. You have to figure out what worked and what didn't work. So you go through all of these steps. And if you didn't have them in place at the beginning of the year, try to figure out as best as you can what worked, what didn't at that debrief stage. Figure out what were your best marketing moments from this year. It can be so easy to be hard on ourselves to say, this is what didn't work. My marketing sucked this year. 2020 has been a downer. Try to look at some of the positives as well. What were your shining moments this year with your business? It's equally as important to figure out what were the best times as it is to find out what were the worst times in your marketing. So think about that. The other thing that you want to look at is think about all of the customer touch points that you have throughout the year. Did your tactics match what your customer touch points are? And a customer touch point is any time that a potential customer would come in contact with your brand. Social media, word of mouth, maybe they saw a flyer that you put up while they were on their outside on their walk trying to get some exercise. Maybe it was a partnership that you did with an organization. Figure out what all of the touch points are, and then you really want to kind of take note of that and hold it in the back of your head because we're going to talk about that. So this is looking back, okay? Figure out what your shining moments were. Figure out what the tough moments were. And I want you to actually write those down. Take 2 minutes while I take a dramatic sip of water and write them down. Either in the chat or you can write them down on paper. You're right, Dwayne. The strategies that could have worked well at the beginning of the pandemic, but using the same tactics now might not be as effective. Absolutely. 2020, again, like I said, it was a bit of a, it was a, not a bit, diminishing it. It was a tough year for everyone. We all had to shift everything that we're doing. And so you're right. Some things that would have worked at the beginning didn't work at the end, which means that you probably would have had to do this partway through the year as well. To figure out what wasn't working. And maybe instead of looking back on all of 2020, you're just going to look back to what happened when the pandemic hit and you had to change everything. And that's going to be your starting point. And that's okay too. If you only have a few months of data to look at, it's not a big deal. If maybe you just launched your business a few months ago, so you only have a few months of data to look at, it's still good to look back on exactly what's been going on and again, pinpoint those changes. Yeah, Ivana, record in Excel, yeah, and healthcare programs, logging personal information, birthdays. Let's talk. Birthdays are great. Birthdays have been tough this year, but we all have them. So you know what? This is silver lining to everything. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about mindset. We've looked back. We've kind of looked at how everything was last year. We're thinking already about 2021. What does 2021 look like for you? Have you checked your mindset yet for this year? Have you checked your mindset about how you plan on looking at 2021? What I find is sometimes it takes either a good kick in the butt, fire under the butt, a change in perspective. You know, you can try to stare at the sun all you want, but anytime you try to stare at the sun, you're going to burn your eyes. So if you look just next to the sun or below it, you look down, you still get the sunlight shining on you. But it's a change in perspective so that you can actually move forward when you're not blinded. And so you just really need to think about changing your perspective heading into 2021, because a different perspective is going to equal better results. You can look at 2020 and see a lot of negative, and only look at what didn't work, or you can look at 2020 and you can look at what didn't work as a lesson learned to move forward for 2021. You can look back at 2020 and you can look and see, these were my shining marketing moments and I want to recreate those for 2021. But it really is a shift in perspective. You have to believe that you can. And I know this is going to be like part learning and part pep talk, because I really feel like we all need a bit of a pep talk every so often these days. But a shift in perspective is going to help you to build a more creative marketing strategy. And so, you have to think about the fact that you're more than just your product and your service. You are a brand, you're a story. Oh, great. That's great. You're optimistic and empowered. You should feel optimistic and empowered. 2021 is fresh. It's new. It brings opportunity to you. You have to figure out how you can take your shining moments from 2020, take your learning perspective from 2020 and shift it into 2021 so that you can grow. And that's the biggest thing, is you want to look at 2021 as a point of growth. I know, and I'm going to be completely honest with you here, because this is why we're here. I often find myself stuck in the whole, oh man, everyone's talking about there's going to be a recession, and I get in this fearful moment. And it's at those times that I don't execute my marketing strategies properly. And I have to give myself a quick, this is where the kick in the butt happens, because it has to be fast for me, because I'm working with clients and I'm working with them and helping them to market their businesses. So if I'm in those moments and I'm in those ruts, then I can't help anybody else. I'm no good to anybody. So usually it lasts for, maybe an hour, and then I'm like, what am I doing? So you have to look at the opportunity in front of you instead of the barriers that are there. Because if there's a barrier right in front of you, chances are you can walk around it, or there's a door, or there's a window. Whatever analogy you want to look at, you want to look at 2021 as whatever analogy it is to get through or around those barriers. And you know what? If you're feeling empowered enough, Rena, you should just smash through that barrier and just forget that it's even there. How do you actually cancel out the noise? You know, face everything and rise. I love that, Rena. How do you cancel out the noise? For me, it's a pep talk. Sometimes as well, it's listening to music. You have to find, or even I've started working out again more regularly. You just have to find that one thing that's going to help you to refocus or quiet down. Um, it's almost really cheesy too. I started using the Fit On app, and I love it. And I'm not an affiliate of them or I don't, they're not a client or anything. Here's less days. Yeah, it's a hard one. Sometimes we go through longer ruts, but there was one, and I can't even remember which fitness instructor it was on this app. Just kept saying, find those moments of joy in my exercise. And I'm like, I'm dying because I'm out of shape. But you want me to find my moments of joy. And then she started talking about, it could be a puppy. It could be maybe you have a baby. It could be whatever it is. It can be the smallest little thing. Find that moment of joy and focus on that until that's the thing that is flooding your brain. Okay. Yeah, but Rena, I'm gonna steal that and probably put it as a quote on my computer so that I can remind myself of that. Fear is something that shouldn't hold you back. It can hold you back at some points. It's really, we're all gonna steal it, Rena. I hope you're okay with that. But really try to find those moments of joy in whatever you're doing. For me, sometimes it's a workout. Sometimes I sing. Sometimes I sit and I snuggle with my daughter for a minute. It really just depends on what you need to do to center yourself back in. Some people really find that meditation works for them as well. And you don't have to meditate for an hour. It can literally be 5 minutes where you sit and you're still and you find that calm with your breath. The other thing that you can look at as well is don't don't look at the fear as something that should be holding you back. Look at the fear that's something that is just a part of life. And once you accept that it's going to be there, you can find ways to live with it and work around it. Because if the fear is there, but you just insert it in that propels you forward instead of holds you back, that's another way to look at it as well. There are some things that are out of our control, but what you can control is what's happening today. You can control what's happening right now, and you can control your next steps and how you're going to move forward. And so if you focus on yeah, you stole it from someone else. If you focus on the things that you can control, then you can definitely break out of that fear faster than a few days. And if it's a few days, then you move on after a few days. You can only do what you can do. We're only human. So what I want you to do right now is that I want you to write down your vision for the future. Write it in the chat. I want to see everybody's vision for the future. It can be quick. Doesn't have to be a long paragraph, but I want you to write it down while I take a dramatic sip of water again. I just like saying dramatic sip of water. My vision for the future of my business is that we keep growing that my vision for the future is growth. And my vision for the future is helping other businesses to really shine. I come from an entertainment background. I used to be the person on stage. I used to be the person in front of the camera. And it's funny, I've totally flip-flopped, and now I'm the person who's cheering on clients while they're on the media. I'm the person who is thrusting everybody else into the spotlight while I usually stay more behind and kind of in the shadows. And I'm trying to step out of that as part of my marketing strategy. But my vision for the future is massive growth. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. That's my vision. Okay. Share that with you. Don't see anything coming in. We're going to move on. Okay. At least write it down on your own in your journal. Journal about it every day. Because, and actually, I'm going to tell you one personal story before. See, I told you I could talk a lot. One personal story that I have from when I moved to Toronto was I could not get a teaching job to save my life. And oh, I'm seeing some stuff come in here. So we'll tell my personal story in a second. Supporting local small business to help them get through the pandemic and keep their employees safe and healthy. Absolutely. Being of service, focused on helping others. Love it. A fully sustainable online art, nature, spirituality, teaching, mentoring business. Amazing. These are great visions. And make sure you write these down somewhere that you can revisit them. So when I was first in Toronto, when I first moved here, I couldn't get a teaching job. I ended up taking a job at a bead store. Yes, BEAD. We sold beads, and we sometimes made jewelry for people out of those beads. We taught some courses, and I had some random person come in one day. I was in the shop by myself, and this person came in. They didn't buy anything. Just some random person came in, walked up to the counter where I was, and he was like, I just felt compelled to come in here and tell you that you should write down what your goals are. And I was like, okay, this is weird. I thought he was going to try to sell me something. Maybe he wanted to be my life coach or something. I don't know. I thought he was just selling me something. And I was like, okay, thank you. And he's like, yeah, if you write something down, it's more likely to come true. And that was just some random person who walked into a store that I worked at, said that to me, and then walked out. And whether you believe in a higher power, angels, whatever you believe in, I just believe that people are put into our path at various points in our lives to share things with us that are going to push us forward. And I have since then always written down what my goals are. And my goals may have changed over the years. Before I wanted to be a famous singer, that has changed over the years. But I was working towards it. And now my goals have changed. I now own my own business, and I own a business that I'm able to live off of, and my family is building a legacy, and that is kind of my overall my life goal. I've written it down. Make sure you write it down. It's important. That was where that little personal tangent went off on. Sorry. Okay. So now that we've shifted our mindset, now you have to find out exactly what your audience wants from you. You need to do some listening. You need to be in people's faces. You need to be in people's social media feeds. You need to be listening on to what the conversations your competitors are having with their customers. Social media has made audience listening very easy now because you can follow hashtags. You can look at what your competitors are doing and look at their conversations. You can ask your audience anything. I know earlier on we talked about doing what is the importance of writing the goals? So we're going to step back, Kess. The importance of writing the goals is that it partially keeps you accountable. Some people think that, and again, it depends on what you believe, a little bit of magic. But if you write something down and it's in your face all the time, chances are you're going to work harder to really actually achieve it. And it's something that you just thought of one time and then you forget. Just keeps you accountable. Anyways, audience listening. Audience listening is very important. If you have a current audience, you have customers, you are in a very unique spot where you can actually ask them what they want from you. Dwaynia talked about doing polls at events. I know a couple other people said that they do surveys. We just sent out, believe it or not, our first survey to our email newsletter. We've never actually done a survey, but usually not usually, we always ask our customers for testimonials and reviews afterwards. So it's almost like we do a little bit of a debrief with our customers every time that we work with them. And the idea is that you want to take whatever you can and you want to take that feedback so you can make your business better. If we're looking forward to 2021 and we're looking to make sure that we're doing things that make sense for our audience, that make sense to grow our business, you want to make sure that you're actually listening to what your customers want. Because if your customers are saying X and you're over here screaming Y at the top of your lungs, that doesn't mix. They're adjacent, but X and X would be better, or Y and Y would be better. So you want to make sure that you're on the same page. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to be able to identify opportunities that you have available to you for listening. Again, I did mention, and it's never too late to start listening either. And if you don't have an audience because you're just launching, look at what your competitors are doing. So there's always opportunity. So identify the opportunities that are available to you. Is it social media? Can you do surveys? Are you going to do a little bit of market research? All of those things are things that you want to look at, okay? You find clients don't fill out surveys and they won't give testimonials, even though they rave about. So where do they rave about what you do? In your conversations? Because if it's conversations that you have, what you should be doing is you should be frantically scribbling down notes as soon as you have those conversations. If you are hearing any feedback from your clients at all, it doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be a survey. It doesn't have to be, in person. Great. So what you do is you keep a notebook with you then, and you like stealthily like write it down as soon as you're finished. I do that at networking events sometimes. If I collected a business card and I had a great conversation with somebody and I knew that it was the beginning of the event, I would actually write a few notes on the back of the business card. So I remembered different things that I needed to remember. Identify the opportunities. It does not have to be formal. A conversation with somebody is equally as important in your listening journey with your customers as is doing a survey or any sort of formal testimonial and things like that. It's great if you can get testimonials because then you can pop them on your website. So we're not talking necessarily about quoting people, but we're going to talk about that in a second, CJ, because what we're going to do is definitely ethical. So you're identifying your opportunities, whatever it is, conversations, surveys, testimonials, reviews, whatever it is. Monitor for feedback. So you want to look at the sentiment. Is it positive? Is it negative? What's the tone like? What kinds of words are they using to describe your products or services? Take note of all of those things, because then in the next step, you're going to analyze everything. Obviously, if you have a survey, sure, you have data. I know some of you like data. Here we go. Oh, I missed that. Yeah, verbal testimonial and allow you to transcribe sound clips from the conversation. Yep. You only use what they say. Okay, but listen, I'm not necessarily talking about, so listen, we'll talk about take action in a second, okay? So we're going to monitor for feedback, all of those different things. We're going to analyze it. What did your customers say? Were there certain trends that came out of these discussions? Do people love certain things more than other things? Are people saying that they really didn't like something? Do they wish that you did something that you didn't do? All of those things, analyze all of that, take note of it, write it down. And then is the action step. Now, is it ethical for you to use something that your clients have said to you? I am not, if you can't get a specific testimonial, and they're not going to write it down, they're not going to do a video testimonial for you, then no, obviously you don't want to start quoting them and using their name and using their words. specifically as a quote without their express permission. Absolutely. However, what you can do is you can start weaving some of the types of words that they're using through your marketing content. So, for example, if say you use a lot of buzzwords in your marketing, your clients or your customers aren't necessarily going to understand what those buzzwords are. So maybe instead of saying, let me give you an example here. So instead of saying, of course, I'm drawing a blank right now. So instead of saying something like, I'm trying to think of something really, really technical that's come up for us. So refine your social media profiles. Instead of saying something like that, maybe my customers don't talk about refining their social media profiles or even optimizing their social media profiles. I say, write your social media profiles to make it so people love you. Attract more customers because you're more attractive. Attract more customers because you're providing value. I don't talk about amplifying my message because people don't necessarily know what amplifying my message means. I talk about attracting more customers, reaching more people. So you have to use some of the words. Oh, can you hear me still? Rena, you say that the screen froze. So yeah, okay, so Ivana, is the screen froze? Okay, frozen, sorry. But yes, you cannot record somebody without their express permission, absolutely. But if you can't, what I'm saying is, if you can't get those specific sound bites because you don't have that, still utilize the informal things that you're doing as part of your marketing strategy because it will make it better. It will make the content that you're doing better. It will make the content more so that people can understand what you're doing more than if I'm using tons of jargon and buzzwords throughout. People don't want to hear those buzzwords because they feel like you're spamming them. They don't need to hear it. And your competitors are probably also using those buzzwords. So why not be a little bit different? Listen to how your customers are talking about your content, about your services, about your products, and use those words. Use their exact words. Use the words that you're using to describe what you do. And that's okay. That is very ethical. And if you can actually get permission to record something, then absolutely do it because you can use it. Chances are, though, if you have a great conversation with somebody and you follow up with them and you say, you said XYZ in quotation marks, would you mind if I use that as a testimonial? They don't have to do any extra work. All they have to do is approve it. So that's something that you can also try if you're looking to have something that's a little bit more formal. You need testimonials, things like that. But the biggest thing is take the actions that are available to you. If someone said they didn't like something and it's a trend that comes up quite often, change it. Make your customers feel like you're actually listening to them by actually taking action and moving forward and build that loyalty because you're taking what they said to heart. That's the biggest thing. People just want to feel heard. And in 2020, people want to feel heard. They want to know that the brands that they're buying into this year, that they're investing in a very difficult year, actually care what they say. So it's important that you really look at that and you take action from it. What was the show? There was a show that I'm going to say there was a woman that was really complaining about the reviews that she got, and she said that her customers don't know anything, and it was very volatile. And she ended up her business shut down. That's a really extreme example, but chances are if you ignore what your customers have to say to you and you have a customer that's giving you feedback, then you're ignoring a huge, huge opportunity. Okay. So what channels will you use to listen in 2021? And we're not gonna dwell on this one because we talked about a few already. Social media is a big one. Try a survey. See if your audience will fill it out. And if they won't fill out a survey, then maybe your survey is too long, maybe try tweaking it, maybe just send them one question to answer instead of an actual link through to a survey. Try to make the barriers to actually, following up with you very low, and so that you can actually get that feedback. And if it has to be an in-person conversation or over the phone, ask them if they can chat. Absolutely do it. It's important that you take the time to get that feedback. Okay, let's talk about 2021. All right. Now that we've talked about listening, I want to know, what is your wish list for this year? What is your wish list for your marketing? If you could achieve one thing in 2021, what would you want? What would you want to do? What would it be? If you could achieve one thing this year. Oops, I went backwards. There's me going backwards. What would you achieve this year? More interaction. Okay. Excellent. Right. More interaction. That's good. For me, the one thing that I want to achieve this year is I actually want to start doing more media for myself. A mission trip. Excellent. More brand partnerships, more sponsors. Absolutely. These are great. These are very practical wish list items. If you could wish, if you could have anything you wanted for your marketing this year, what would it be? Think big. Build more relationships and exposure. Learn more about social media. Yeah, social media can be overwhelming. More targeted marketing. These are all great goals to have for your marketing this year. What is the wish list? What's that one? What's the whale? Make 1 million in sales. Okay. Now we're somewhere. We're thinking big. It's important to be practical, but it is important to step back and wish upon a falling star every so often. We need goals that are both attainable, and we need goals that are aspirational. We need goals that we can work towards. We need goals that maybe they're out of reach for us right now, but it's always either in the back of our minds or it's written down. Because those are the goals that you want to work toward. What is that wish list that you have? If Oprah came and said, you get a blah, 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 you get a blah, 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 you get a wish, you get a wish, you get a wish, and it could be anything. You want to make sure that you're still thinking big. This is what I'm saying, is that small business can be small in size, but it is not small in power. Okay, you want to make sure, sign our Netflix special TV show. Yeah, really want a TV show for our community. Amazing. You want to have those wish list items, and don't shy away from talking about them, because those are the things that you are going to work towards. Keep those on your list of goals that you want for your business. Those can be your long-term goals. You can have long-term marketing goals just as you can have long-term business goals. And so you want to make sure that you are keeping that wish list of goals really in front of you when you're creating your 2021 marketing plan. I love those goals. Those are some great ones. Turn proposals that turn into actual business. Yep. Okay, good. That's good. Keep those in mind as we move forward, because now we are going to talk about setting your goals for 2021. Who here has set their business goals for next year already? I'm not talking about marketing goals. Who here has set their business goals? You've started. Excellent. Okay. This is something that my business partner Trevor and I will probably do while we're shut down over Christmas. Who here shuts down? That's why I'm here. Okay, definitely. Business goals are important. We're talking more about the marketing side of things for sure, but your business goals are absolutely equally as important as your marketing goals because your marketing goals, as you can see from the arrow, should be tied into your business goals. Your business goals, waiting for those 3 weeks with no events. Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to have those times, right? That's when we get stuff done. That's when you can prepare yourself for what's to come, try to take a bit of a break. But you want to start with those business goals, and then those business goals will lead to your marketing goals and then metrics. Metrics always comes into play. Um, you know, obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone has heard of SMART goals. Yes, no, SMART goals. Okay. So everyone has heard of SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Okay. It's important that when you're setting both your business goals and your marketing goals, that you keep those things in mind. Um, I sometimes, I would say, get stuck in the fact that I don't always think of those things when I'm creating my goals. And then I'm like, okay, well, how am I even measuring whether I'm successful or not if I haven't done something that's really specific and measurable? Okay, so business, we have business and marketing plan 3 to 5 years ahead. That's great. Um, Clients in a hospital setting, amazing. So you start out with your business goals. All right. Our business goals for next year. Well, I haven't really talked to Trevor about it yet, but I would love to double our business for next year. And one of the things that we're doing is we're revamping a lot of stuff. We're actually in the process of redoing our website, which fingers crossed should launch in January. Things have been a little crazy, but that's one of the things that we're doing is we're redoing our website. That's part of our marketing. And our metrics for that is that we're finally going to have our Google Analytics set up properly on it. And we're going to be able to measure all of the web traffic that comes in, so we can utilize those metrics to really kind of look to see where people are spending time on our website. So we can optimize our website a little bit better. Um, how do you plan ahead when everything is so uncertain? Well, here's the thing. There is a lot of uncertainty right now. However, what you can plan on is, what services that your business offers. You can't just not plan because things are uncertain. You can have contingencies in place. The chances are life is still going to go on, even though there's uncertainty, and you can't pivot if you don't have a plan in place. That's my thing. If you don't plan for what's happening right now, then you can't pivot. Chances are things are going to get better next year in terms of what's going on with the pandemic. I don't think I don't think we're not going to be back to normal. I mean, obviously, you can use some common sense in terms of things that common sense in terms of things that you're looking at for the future. Maybe we might be doing in-person events by next Christmas. Maybe not, but plans, you're right, plans aren't set in stone. But if you have something written down, if you have something in place, then you can tweak it. It's easier to tweak something than it is to start from scratch every time a wrench gets thrown into your plans. So how do you plan ahead? Very carefully. You plan ahead with intention. You plan ahead. You can still have those business goals, right? You can have the business goals that you want. My business goals are not going to change just because there's uncertainty around. My business goal is still going to be that I'd love to double my business for next year. What's going to change probably is how I'm going to market it to get there. But for right now, I can see that at least for the next little while, things are still going to be the same. So I can plan ahead based on that. Now, if you're really concerned about planning for a year in advance, which is understandable, plan 3 to 6 months at a time. And it just means that you are revisiting your strategy more often And that just means that you have to stay on top of what's happening in your industry. You have to really listen to your customers more often. And it just takes a little bit more of careful planning, a little bit. It's like a rolling plan throughout the year. And you're really just doing that in pieces rather than sitting down at the end of the year and planning an entire year out. Okay. Okay. So set your SMART goals, make sure they're measurable, because if you don't actually set something that's measurable for yourself, if you don't set a timeline as part of those goals, then you will never know if you have been successful. You just won't. I can say that I want more traffic to my website, but I can get one extra person on my website than I did last month, and that's still more. I need to say I want 50% more traffic on my website by the end of May. That's a SMART goal. Okay. It's something that's attainable. It's something I can work towards. And when the end of May happens, I can actually see whether I've hit that goal or not. Okay. So just make sure that everything is measurable. And if you need to, for your own sanity, plan in small chunks, then you just go through this process every time you sit down to plan. Yeah, you can definitely look at past performance and use those numbers as a guideline. I think that the thought though is that, things are really uncertain right now because of the pandemic. Things are opening, things are shutting. So we do have to take that into consideration. But you just plan carefully, and you want to make sure you do plan so you can tweak rather than starting from scratch every time. Okay? All right. So these are some kind of goals that you can look at. It's a slide that I wanted to pop in here just for examples of the different things that you can do. So for example, if my goal was to increase brand awareness by, let's say, 30%, the things that I would be looking at in terms of my metrics are reach. I would be looking on social media. I would be looking at impressions on social media. I'd be looking at shares on social media. I can look at referrals. I can look at signups to a loyalty program. Yeah, definitely. What I normally set as my KPIs for the year, absolutely. And when you're the important thing to remember is when you're creating a plan, you don't have to have some 50-page detailed, everything is written out, in full sentences and paragraphs, like you're writing, a major paper for your thesis. It literally can be bullet points. You can do things in charts. I love using charts when I do things like this because it's really visual. My business partner likes whiteboards, so we do a lot of things like that, and then taking pictures of the whiteboards. There's lots of different ways to do it. Keep it simple so that you want to make sure that you're actually going to do it. You want to increase your engagement by, let's say, 60%. This would be kind of flip chart and pin in your office, and it's always there. It's amazing. So you can look at things like likes, comments, and saves. You want to increase web traffic by 80%. You look at link clicks from your social media, your bounce rate, you look at your page stats. Those are all different types of metrics. You want to get, let's say, 10 more leads every month. So for that, you can look at email signups. You can look at how many consultations you're having. You can look at how many new connections you make at a networking event. There's lots of how many meetings you set up. There's lots of different kind of metrics that you can do. But the key that I wanted you to look at here is, so I haven't included the business goals on this slide, obviously, because that would be a lot of text on one slide. But these are my marketing goals, and these are the stats, so the metrics that I'm going to use to track throughout. So if we go back here, it's business goals, it's marketing goals, and then it's metrics. So if we look at the marketing goals and then the metrics that support them, it's really important that you set that in place before you start. It doesn't have to be a fancy software that you're using. It doesn't have to be expensive. You can track on an Excel spreadsheet. Do it manually. Write it down in a book. Look so you can see the different trends over time. And when I say time, that's important because you want to make sure that you're following your specific timeline that you set out. It could be the entire year, but then you have to remember that you should set milestones along the way, because after 3 months, if you have a milestone set, For example, say you wanted to get 100 new leads in 2021. And after the first 3 months, maybe you started slowly. You wanted to get your first 20. You're working the kinks out. After 3 months, if you've only gotten 15 leads, then, you need to check yourself. You need to check your strategy, what's not working, what is working, and then you can move forward and you can either adjust your next milestone accordingly, or you can just try to hit the next milestone as it is. Having those different milestones throughout the year is going to force you to check in on yourself. It's going to force you to help stay accountable. And, it's really important to really look at that. I think that you could look at it almost as obsessive, but I think that it's important. I look at things sometimes every month, depending on what I'm looking at. For social media metrics, we track everything weekly. Especially for some clients, we track weekly. For ourselves, we track weekly. For some clients, we track monthly. For our revenues, we're always looking at things on a monthly basis, but then we do a really big, well, I hate the word deep dive, but we really dive into things every quarter and we look at, okay, this is what we're doing, what we did for the quarter. We didn't really quite hit our milestone that we wanted to hit for the quarter, or we did hit it, we smashed through it. Maybe we can set higher goals for the entire year. And so you really just want to make sure that you are setting those milestones throughout, you're keeping yourself accountable, and that, and I'm going to talk about this more, but slow and steady wins the race. You don't have to hit everything in January. You want to hit everything by the end of next December. And so if you're looking at things kind of as a whole, it's really important that you're looking at things as a whole. You want to make sure that you're looking at little bite-sized snacks throughout the year to keep it so that it's not overwhelming. Otherwise, that fear might creep in as well. Okay, so revisit often, revisit monthly, revisit quarterly, whatever it is, and make sure you're writing down your implementation timeline. I am going to keep saying this every time we talk about something new. Write it down. Write it down. Okay? Write it down. All right. Yes. Thrive, don't just survive. And I was thinking about what to call this slide. Really, it's all about cutting the fluff from your strategy. If you're trying to do too much, you are going to find that you're just surviving. If you cut things back to everything that's working and you focus on what's working rather than things that don't make sense for your business, you are going to thrive. Your business is going to grow. You're not going to be spending a bunch of time doing things that don't make sense for your business, for your customers. So you really just want to make sure that you're cutting the extras out that don't make sense. You want to direct your energy into the right places. It always starts with where your audience hangs out. If your audience is not hanging out on Instagram, don't start an Instagram account. It does not make sense. If your audience isn't hanging out on Twitter, don't be on Twitter. Those are investments that you're going to be making of your time and maybe your money because you've hired someone to do it for you. It doesn't make sense. And so you want to make sure that it's that listening, figure out what your audience wants, where do they hang out, where do they want to interact with, where do they like to interact with brands, how do they like to consume content, do they like video, do they like blogs, what kind of blogs do they like, do they like listicles that are very easy to skim down, do they like things that are a little bit more intensive, what kinds of websites do they like, what kinds of color schemes do they like. All of those things are really what you should be looking at so you can cut the extra stuff out of your strategy. And again, it goes back to what didn't work in 2020. What can you cut from 2020 to make 2021 even better? The other thing that most people forget about is how much time do you have to invest in the execution? If you only have time to be on one social media platform, only be on one social media platform and do that amazingly well. Sure, TikTok just launched. That doesn't mean or didn't just launch, but you know what I mean? It's on fire. It doesn't mean you have to be there. If you only have time to be on one and do it well. Your time is valuable. Your time is worth money. It's a resource. And if you burn yourself out, then you're going to be of no use to anybody. The other thing you want to think about is, what is your skill level? You can learn something new, obviously, but think about what your skill level is, whether you can execute it, whether you have to hire somebody else. Those are all things to consider when you're cutting the extras out of your strategy, and what resources are available to you. There's so many workshops. There's tons out there if you want to learn something new. You can hire an expert. Maybe you can't afford to hire an expert to execute the strategy for you. Maybe you hire an intern for execution, but you hire an expert to help you build the strategy. You just want to make sure that you're doing things that make sense for yourself. And most experts, if they're worthwhile, will work with you. If you can't afford the budget to hire them to actually execute it, they'll work with you to build a strategy so you can actually use an intern to do something. So figure out what doesn't make sense with your strategy and move forward from there. You don't have to be everywhere. This is the one thing that I have to say to people all the time. Just because TikTok is on fire doesn't mean you have to be on TikTok. It could mean that you're on Instagram. If you want to do something like that, maybe you should do more with Instagram Reels right now if you feel like you have time for that. You don't have to start something new just because that something new is out there. Okay, do one thing, do it well, because remember, you still have to run your business. So that's important. Your marketing shouldn't hold you back from growing your business because you're stretched too thin. Your marketing should lead to everything that's good about your business. Which brings me to my next step, your comfort zone. We all live here. 2020 has been harder to find our comfort zone. Sometimes it's a warm blanket, sitting and rocking in a corner. Um, you know, you have to make sure, we talked about fear, so I'm not going to go as much into it as I was going to. But you want to make sure that fear isn't holding you back. You want to make sure that in 2021, try something new. My question is, what's one thing that you've seen your competitors do that you would love to try for your business? Or what's one thing that you've dreamed that you could do as part of your marketing strategy? Have you always wanted to launch a video series? Have you always wanted to, maybe your dream is to start TikTok. Maybe your audience loves being on TikTok and you haven't launched on it yet. But you want to make sure that you're trying to find ways to step out of your comfort zone this year, because we've all seen that picture where this is your comfort zone and this is where life happens. And it's true for your business too. This is where success is for you, because your comfort zone is good. Your comfort zone is probably where you're living now, and maybe times are okay. But if you do want to reach that $1 million in sales on your wish list, if you want to get your TV special on Netflix, then you want to have to step out of your comfort zone to try to do things a little bit differently than you're doing them now. And I find that a good place to start is to look at what your competitors are doing and seeing if there's anything that really resonates with you. Is there something that you thought was really cool? Yeah, growth lives outside your comfort zone. Absolutely. You want to try to do things that excite you throughout the year. That is what's going to keep you on track. There are so many things you can still do to get creative with things without just adding to the noise. As long as you are providing entertainment, you're providing value for your customers, whatever it is, you're not just putting content together just for the sake of putting content together. Yeah, definitely use a calendar to plan content. Absolutely. Yeah. Plan A, B, and C until COVID is gone. That's true. I feel like, we can do things that get a little bit creative. We can do creative things with mask wearing. What I would say for you, if you don't have competitors that are doing things that are exciting to you, we have here, I'm very camera shy, and break off my comfort zone and started my business tip series on Instagram. Absolutely. That's a big one. People are stepping out of their comfort zone to do that. and try to push yourself, and you can start slowly. There's a lot of content creators, especially on Instagram right now, doing really, really cool things. And maybe you can maybe take a page from some of them to do some fun things for your business as well. But I think the key this year is definitely try to step out of your comfort zone, because you can't really live in your comfort zone right now anyway, because it's so, everything is, Carlina, we talked about things being so uncertain. And so you just definitely need to step out of your comfort zone, because everyone's in the same boat anyway. And so why not have a little bit of fun, right? Okay. This is what I was talking about with everything should fit together. Your blogging should fit with your website, should fit with your sales strategy, your social media, everything that you're doing should fit together as one big, beautiful marketing plan. I talked in the beginning about, your tactics leading to the metrics. And one thing that people forget is when you select tactics to use, you want to make sure that you're working smarter, not harder. Smarter, not harder. That is the big thing. Can everybody please type that into the chat? In 2021, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. In 2021, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. Okay? 2021, I'm going to work smarter, not harder. That is the important thing to do here. Let's, like, some people, it's like almost, it blows their mind when you think of efficiencies that you can find between the different tactics that you're using. But if you just pick tactics and you don't see how they fit together, what is the point? You're not creating a strategy, or you're picking marketing tactics. And so, for example, one example could be, you decided, I'm going to start blogging for business. Excellent. I love that. Everyone's going to work smarter, not harder. For example, you create a blog for your website. The blog content that you're creating for your website is actually going to improve your SEO on your website, because you have fresh content going up. But the blog content that you use on your website can also be a jumping off point for your social media content you're creating. You can actually create, for example, if you do a list of tips and tricks on your blog, you can create, say I have 5 tips in one blog post. That's 5 different social media posts right there. Use your stuff wisely, use your content. Yeah, blogs are amazing. Absolutely. Blogs are amazing to get traffic on your website. They're amazing to help you to create great content on your social media. It just all fits together. And then on your social media, if you're creating those 5 separate social media posts about it, every time you're linking back to your website. That's all links back to your website. It all helps with your SEO. It all helps with visibility. Everything should work together. Okay. I want you to start thinking of different ways that things can fit together. Well, the other thing that your blog can help do as well is it can help you with your email marketing strategy. You can start using your blog content in your email marketing strategy. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. So everything should fit together. Another example, you could use your blogs as part of your sales to create warm leads. Blogging and public speaking are definitely most people's challenges, Ivana. You're not alone on there. Yeah, absolutely. Start at 12 days of tips related to your business. It's one of those things, blogging, create warm leads. That's what I was saying. So if you meet somebody new and you had a great conversation, maybe you were at one of Dwayne's events and you used the networking section on the Hop-In event. You had a great conversation. Why not follow up with them and say, we talked about this. I actually wrote a blog about this a little while back, and I just wanted to send it to you because I thought you'd be interested. Use those blogs that you've created. Don't just write a blog and post about it once on social media and then be like, it's done. Post about it a million times. Post about it. I come back to things sometimes a year later. If it's evergreen content, I repost that. I almost swore for a second. Repost it. Repost everything. Use your reviews on your website. Use your reviews on social media. Create a loyalty program by, doing some sort of brand experience that you're creating with people. You can still have a great brand experience and make it virtual. We just did a brand experience where we had an event and we were using some influencers for the event, and we sent out a little care package. So they had something yummy to nibble on during the presentation that was happening. And we sent out product along with it as well. So there's still fun things that you can do to really engage your audience and tie everything together. And then in this top corner here, I have messaging, and I put that in there because you want to make sure that you are being consistent with the messages that you're putting out. And you want to make sure that everything you're doing is working towards those same goals of really positioning your brand in the best way possible. Okay? Everything should work together. Think of when you're building your strategy, and as you're, as you're going through the workbook here as well, there's things that you can fill out because I wanted to give you that as a takeaway. Every tactic that you're putting together, think of it as a puzzle piece. And the entire puzzle put together is a beautiful picture of how you're going to achieve your business goals. Okay. And so just think about it that way. I know some people say think of the big picture, but the big picture is fine. Not all of us can paint a gorgeous picture. We can't all take a beautiful landscape photo. But one thing we can all do is we can all put together a puzzle. Okay. It might take some of us longer than others, but we can all put together a puzzle. So think about your marketing strategy as a puzzle, and each tactic that you're putting together should all fit together. Find the efficiencies, find the ways that everything can fit together. Okay. That's the biggest thing for you, is find the way things put together. Apparently I can't talk anymore. Find the efficiencies between all of the tactics that you're using so that you are working smarter, not harder in 2021. That is the big thing. Let it blow your mind, all of the efficiencies you can find. You're not breaking any rules. You're not being lazy about it. You're just making sure that you're utilizing your time in better ways than just trying to reinvent the wheel every single time. Okay? All right. Now, I want you to get to know the new you. Okay? We have all changed since the beginning of 2020. It is inevitable. Our businesses have changed. We've all talked about it already. So, we want to make sure that your content does 4 things: introduce you to your audience, identify your product and service features. Yeah, sticky notes for your puzzles. That's fair. Establish you as an industry expert, highlight your product and service benefits, and tell people how awesome you just are. Okay? Everything that you do in terms of your content should do all of those things. And getting to know the new you in terms of the 2021 you is introduce you to your audience. What makes you absolutely unique? I want you to type that in the chat. What makes you different than everybody else? What can nobody else say about their business that you can say about your business? Type that in the chat. I'm going to talk through it because I know there's a delay. Thank you for reminding me, Duania. Okay, so what makes you, I get carried away sometimes. I get really excited. What makes you unique? That's what you want to focus on. You want to make sure that you talk to people about what makes you unique. What makes you different than your competitors? Someone that might offer the same or a similar service that you offer. There has to be something about you that is unique. And so you want to make sure that you are using your content, whether it's on your website, your social media, your newsletters, your presentations, your videos that you're doing. It should always introduce people to introduce people to you. Introduce people to what makes you unique, okay? What value can you bring to people? Duania, you're 100% authentic and relatable. Absolutely, and very self-aware. I love my conversations with Duania. I love my conversations with you, and I think that you're absolutely right. That is something that sets you apart from a lot of the other groups that kind of offer a similar thing to what you offer, for sure. Again, we talked about you being more than just your product or service, okay? It's good that you can talk about your product or service, but talk about the benefits. What are people getting from you? What's that value? Carlene, I'm a biologist and therapist turned event producer, so I pay attention to the data and can make connections easily for my clients. That's amazing. You just want to make sure that you're focusing on all of those little things. For me, I'm a little crazy. Again, I have an entertainment background. Most people don't know that about me. Or I used to teach high school. Those things are part of what sets us apart at Songbird as well. We're a family-owned business. We run our business with our baby. I'm surprised she hasn't run in the room. I can hear her screaming in the back there. That's one thing that we do, and I know that we've lost clients sometimes because of some of the things that make us unique. And we have to think that those are not the right clients for us. And so, you just want to make sure that you're looking at not just what you offer, but what makes you unique. And if you're not 100% sure about that, go really to the very root is that you are the unique thing about your business. And so start there and then build from there. Okay, Sandra, you build relationships with clients to provide custom solutions. That's great, but I think there are other people that are probably doing the same thing, if not similar. So you have to figure out what makes you unique in that. You are unique, Sandra. So if that's where you're starting, is how people can interact with you because you are a unique person. That's where you should start. Okay. And again, the one thing that most of us have to get more comfortable with is talking about how awesome we are. I struggle with it too. Most people, we don't like bragging about ourselves because it feels like bragging, even though we're talking facts sometimes. I struggle with it, and I talk to a lot of people that struggle with it. I oftentimes end up having to write people's bios for them because it's really hard to write your own bio because you feel like you're being egotistical. But that's the one thing that you have to make sure that all of the content that you put out there tells people how amazing you are. Okay, so that's just something to remember as we go through 2021. Now, I have 30 more minutes, and I have content, so don't worry. Okay, so what I want to do now is, and I talked about that ray of sunshine and shifting your perspective. You know, I want to talk about some rules to live by in 2021. Okay, this is kind of the sunlight that's going to shine on your strategy. Just keep reminding yourself of these things as you kind of move forward. Okay, real talk. This is the big one. There is a reason why so many influencers are abandoning the perfectly curated feeds and they're moving more towards this whole idea of real talk and body positivity. And, they're putting videos out there that are less than perfect. 53% of your audience is more likely to buy from you if you are being transparent. Think about that. You can have an audience, if you can have over half of them that would actually be more inclined to buy from you because you are we don't all want to be Kardashians. You're right. You're very right. Be real about your business. You are a work in progress unless you've already achieved everything you want to achieve in life. And then that's kind of boring. Unless you've already achieved everything, you have goals. So you are a work in progress if you have goals. If you set goals for 2021, then look at that as being your work in progress. Okay. Yeah, definitely, Rena, those are great things that make you stand out for sure. So think about this real talk. You want to be real. As a brand, sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult. It's not like you can just walk up and it's not like you're just an individual influencer. Sometimes you have to represent your brand in a certain way as well. So these are a few things that you can do. Admit your mistakes. That's a really easy one to do when you think about it, but very hard when you're thinking of, well, if I admit that I made a mistake, that means that I'm not perfect. That's okay. And you know what? Again, if you lose a customer because of it, they probably weren't a good customer for you. And there will likely be other customers that are out there. Of course, you have to be cautious of things when it comes to legal matters, but sometimes, even if we're talking about, what's happening right now with racial equality, what's happening right now with discrimination. There are ways to do things that, to sit and actually be humble and listen. Be honest with your customers. Don't promise the moon if you can't give people the moon. Okay. It's only going to upset people. You can only give what you can give and be honest with that. Be honest in your discussions with them. Provide your pricing. I know there are different tactics that are related to this, where luxury brands don't always like to put pricing on websites and things like that. But if someone asks for your pricing, it's not a bad thing to provide your pricing. Be transparent about it. Don't all of a sudden add all of these surprise extra costs just because you're trying to make the sale. It shouldn't be about that. Remember, you want it to be real. You want to create those relationships. Show behind the scenes of how you make things. If you make a product, show behind the scenes of what happens on a day-to-day basis, and let yourself be imperfect. Again, I talked about the fact that I also launched an IGTV series at the beginning. And at the beginning, I remember I was doing sometimes 4 or 5 takes on a video. And then I was like, what am I doing? I flubbed over a word, whatever. I think there was one video I actually put out where I had lipstick on my teeth. It is what it is. All right. We're all human. Yes, we are trying to build businesses. Yes, there is a brand that we have to think about, but there are always humans behind a business and there are humans behind a brand. And if you are a small business or you're a solo entrepreneur, it's inevitable that your personal brand is going to be tied in with your overall business brand. And you should just embrace it and just run with it and run with that imperfection. Run with the fact that not everything has to be an impeccable, production quality for your videos. Just run with being imperfect because we're humans. We're only human, right? Or we are human, which is pretty amazing. Okay. All right. So be a trendsetter. Okay. Match your customer, not trends. All right. There are trends that are already out there. Some of them might make sense for your business. Again, this is a rule to live by. So think about your product and service changes. Make sure that if you do change something, it's not because everybody else in your industry is doing it. Make sure it's because your customers want it. Make sure you're providing value for your customers. How you deliver that value, maybe that might change as things with the pandemic change. The language that you're using. Yeah, you're right. People can relate easier to imperfect than too perfect. You're right. Again, Kardashian. The language that you choose to use, we talked about that in terms of listening to how people talk about your products and services. Your competitor is probably going to talk about their product and service a little bit different than you would, because again, you're a different business. You might have similar customers, but try to pick the niche. Try to look at different ways you can set yourself apart. So use different language, use a different tone of voice that makes more sense for the brand that you're creating. And then the same thing with your marketing channels. Don't just use something because it's trendy. Use something because your audience wants it. Okay? It's the biggest thing. Match your customer, not trends that are out there. Okay. If we're always chasing trends, it's going to be exhausting and you're never going to be satisfied with the marketing strategy that you've put together. But if you base your marketing strategy soundly off of, what your audience wants, off of the data from the previous year, off of what worked and what didn't from the previous year, rather than looking at what everybody else is doing, then you're going to be a trendsetter on your own because you're focusing on what works for you and what doesn't work for you. For us, there's a lot of other marketing and PR agencies that are out there. We don't, I'm sure we do some things that are very similar, if not the same, but there are other things that we do that are very different because there are things that make us unique. And so, and our customers are different than other people because they're working with us, not other people. So we want to make sure that we look at, our ideal customer and what they need, and then we can build our strategy based on that rather than what's happening in the industry. Okay. This next one is important, and I don't think it's done enough. Don't forget to say thank you to your customers. Thank them often, thank them creatively, thank them simply. It could even be a social media post. It could be an email. It could be in your, when someone's bought something from you, write a nice note to them. I can't tell you how many small businesses that I've bought from now in the past little while. And it's like that personalized little note that you get, when you have that package that arrived, because that it means a lot. For me, that's sometimes even more exciting to get than the actual package that I purchased. Although one of them was chocolate, so I, I can't say the no was more exciting, but those are the different things that you want to look at. Say thank you and say it often. And sometimes that means starting a loyalty program. You don't have to have a ton of people in your loyalty program to make a great loyalty program. And the thing is, once you create it, um, you can grow your audience because people know that you care about them. Let's see. Yeah, I just got another package that had a cool note in it. I love it. It's just that personal touch. It's making people think that they're appreciated, that you appreciate them because I always research my clients' website and Facebook, LinkedIn to see what they do. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely, Ivana, you're exactly right. And that's part of your listening strategy. So that's great that you're doing that already. But definitely say thank you. And sometimes it's just those words. Just thank you. They're simple, and they mean a lot. It goes a long way just for people to see that you appreciate them. Okay? It's a simple one. That's a really easy one that we can all start implementing more. So I struggled with what picture to put here. What I want to say for this is see 2021 as a fresh start. Oh yeah, Christmas card. I love that, Rena. 2021 should be your fresh start. 2020, there are a lot of things that we can say about 2020. It was a tough year. There are some harsh words that we can use and some inappropriate words we can use that we won't. It's been a rough year. Most of us miss our friends and we miss our loved ones, and it's been a tough year. And for your business, you need to try to separate and put some of that aside. Yeah, you're right, Dwayne. For some, 2020 was the fresh start. We know some people that launched in 2020 and have done incredibly well. But for some people, and I'm not even just talking about business wise, personally, it's been really tough for a lot of people. And you have to set that aside and you have to look at 2021 as that fresh start. What are you going to do differently this year that's going to make 2021 that much more exciting? If 2020 was a hard year, focus on 2021 being a good year. If 2020 was a good year, focus on 2021 being amazing. And so look at 2021 as the fresh start that you need. Look at it for your marketing content. Remember that follow through is important. And we talked about some of the different things that you can have in place to keep yourself accountable. One of the things is creating those milestones throughout the year and making sure that you're checking in with your different metrics. Okay. So make sure that you're keeping yourself accountable. Have an entrepreneur buddy that you talk to regularly to keep yourself accountable, a business partner, whatever it is. Just make sure that you're following through this year and that you don't drop that spark. Okay. It's really important. And then also remember, we talked about this, slow and steady wins the race. You have goals for 2021, and that doesn't mean you have to achieve everything in January. Okay. You have to achieve them by the end of December next year. It's a long way away when you think about it, which is why that timeline and building that timeline is so important. Absolutely. Mentors are great. Find a mentor, find a coach, find a friend, whatever it is, even if it's your life partner, whoever, find someone to talk to keep you accountable, and it will actually really help. So that is definitely something important that you should look to do to keep yourself accountable for next year. Okay. So I wanted to leave a little bit of time for some specific questions. Yeah, Dwaynia, you have the accountability program relaunching in 2021. So that's interesting as well if you're looking for that. Now will be the time if you have questions, pop them in the chat. I can definitely talk a little bit more. I don't know if anyone was following along with the workbook, but there are definitely things that you can do in the workbook to help keep yourself accountable, to really identify who your target audience is, how have their needs changed throughout the year. Because again, we talked about one of the rules to live by is, listening to your customers and not trends. And so you have to look at what your customer needs rather than what, other things are happening around you. Question. I often find myself stuck on the verbiage. I know you spoke on talking to your clients in their language. How can we expand on that? Yeah, verbiage is something that it's an interesting one. And I know, Dwayne, you did mention something for the survey was kind of testing what works and what doesn't. And sometimes you have to figure out what works and what doesn't based on conversations that you're having. And so, sometimes it just takes a little bit of trial and error. However, if you're having conversations with your audience, if you're doing the listening, what I would suggest is to actually keep some sort of document and actually jot down words or phrases that people are using to discuss certain things that make sense to your audience. If you have something that's really highly technical, or if you're an artist and you're talking about your art, art obviously is in the eye of the beholder, and so you want to make sure that you're talking about things that make sense for your audience. They're not going to know all of the technical ins and outs of the different materials that you're using. You have to figure out ways to discuss it that is beneficial to the audience. And when we're thinking about verbiage, you also want to think about, we talked about not using a lot of jargon, but you want to think about ways that feature the benefits of what you're doing rather than talking about the specifics about what you're doing. So when we talk about verbiage, you want to talk about filling a need for someone. You want to talk about things that they need, things that they want, all of those different types of things, and you've probably heard this before, but making them the hero of your story. That's the important part when you're writing for your brand, is making sure that everything you're writing is targeted towards your customer and not just talking about yourself. Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let's go back here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Slow and steady wins the race. Ha, that's funny. Yeah, slow and steady does win the race, man. Okay, so length of verbiage on different social media channels. All right, so this is I don't want to say a tough one, but it's something that definitely comes up quite often. For example, Instagram is really loving it when people do long captions. Love it, right? The thing is, though, if you don't have the content to fill a long caption, you don't want to create a long caption just for the sake of creating a long caption. You want to make sure that you're providing value with what you're doing. So it's important to provide that value still, even though you're writing a long caption. So for Twitter, you're keeping it short. For Facebook, it's funny. For one client, I was writing long-ish captions for Facebook, and they were good, but they're like, well, we've just noticed that our content is being shown more when we do short captions. So we started doing short captions, and the content took off. So again, it really depends on your audience. You have to do a lot of listening. I know there's just no silver bullet, but what I can tell you is that in terms of Instagram, the algorithm does favor longer captions, but just make sure you're providing value or people won't read them anyway, and then what's the point? Always make sure you're including the call to action and everything you're doing on social, and that's kind of the important thing. Make sure you're using your hashtags. Like, those are all things that you want to think about in terms of social media content. So many ideas and plans for 2021. What do you suggest for choosing what to focus on first and what to put on hold? Okay, so this is where you would want to take a step back and you would want to say, all right, last year, this worked really, really well. So I'm going to carry that over into this year. And then maybe I'm going to add one more thing into the mix. Okay. The other thing that you want to look at is, what kinds of behaviors has your audience actually exhibited? So if they're seeming to really like video, for example, then you need to launch that video strategy. So really, if you have all of these ideas, write them all down. And then what I would say is prioritize based on your audience behavior, based on the resources that are available to you, and also sometimes based on what's exciting to you. right? Again, we want to make sure that we keep that spark alive. You can't do everything, but it's also okay to say, okay, you know what? In the first quarter, I'm going to launch this. And then maybe in the third quarter, I'm going to launch this as well. So you just need to make sure that you're prioritizing things based on what your customer wants. Okay. Um, Apparently lots of people have so many ideas for 2021 and I love it. What I would say is, so if you're picking, and if prioritization is an issue, then again, you want to look at everything based on your goals for your business. It should all tie back. So create the goals for your business, and then you have all these ideas for 2021. But then you want to evaluate everything based on the goals that you've set for your business. So remember, everything is tied together. It's all that puzzle. It all flows. It's all connected. There's no reason that you would launch anything in your marketing strategy if it doesn't support what you want to achieve with your business. So your business goals, your marketing goals, and then you want to pick your tactics based on that. Okay? Makes sense? Yeah, Facebook is doing it. Facebook is tricky these days. A lot of people are moving away from it in terms of business pages, depending on what functionalities you use, because content isn't being shown as much organically anymore. So it has turned a lot into more of a paid platform for sure. All right, those are great questions. Any other questions? Or do you want me just to talk? I will. The one tip that you should use for 2021. I mean, those are my rules to live by, right? The one tip that you should use for 2021, if I could break it down into one thing, so basically like roll the whole thing into one. You know what? If I could, one tip for 2021 is make sure that you don't lose your marketing spark. Okay, we have uncertainty. There's uncertainty with business, there's uncertainty with the pandemic, and it can be very easy if something changes to say, well, it's just not working, so I'm just not going to bother, or I'm not going to put the effort into it. I would say is just don't lose that spark when things change. You know, all of the stuff that we talked about, the practical application. I mean, I can talk about that, be a trendsetter, listen to your audience. All of those things are great tips for 2021. But if you roll all that together and it's all about implementation, is don't lose the spark, because the follow through is what's going to get you to success. Yeah, PR. That's a big one. You know, we talk about brand awareness. Public relations is really just about finding ways to connect with your audience. And public relations is not just media, it's all of the things. It's social media, it's doing presentations, it's getting a booth at an event, all of those things. It's, you know, the brand experiences, they're all public relations. And right now, it's more important than ever to try to connect with your audience, because there is all of that noise. And so you have to find ways that are going to be more interesting to people. You have to find ways to tell your story so that people will buy into what you have to say. And so to do that, you want to make sure, again, that messaging has to be consistent. You want to make sure that you're building a strategy that all the pieces fit together, and so that people are hearing your story in multiple different places. And that's, I think, the big thing is that you want to just make sure that how do you ensure that your message is being seen is putting it out there consistently. You know, putting it out there once and then not doing it again for a month is not going to help you. Putting it out there every single day is what's going to make it be seen. Finding people to help tell your story for you, whether it's influencers, whether you want to try doing media, get people to start sharing your content on social media, write great blogs that people feel compelled to share. That's all going to help you to kind of rise above the noise and stand out. So it's creating those moments and those sparked moments that people are going to be like, okay, and then they want to share what you're doing. And it could be because of entertainment value. It could be because of they've learned something new they want to share with people. It could be a number of different things. It could be a sale. It could be a number of different ways or reasons why people want to share. But the moment that you can get someone sharing about your brand and talking about your brand for you, then your job, is partially done, because you still have to keep talking about it. But that means that your message is getting out there to more people that you never would have reached. And sometimes a loyalty program is the way to do it. How do I network effectively and build strong relationships without looking desperate or spammy? This is a tough one. Absolutely. I think that there are lots of different platforms. I know Dwayne has a good networking thing coming up today. But I mean, there's lots of things coming up, and there's lots of online places that you can network without looking spammy and without seeming desperate. I would say that as long as you are not always constantly trying to sell to people, then I think the spam nature of things really is put aside. If you are really trying to genuinely start a conversation with somebody, and then, think about it as a relationship rather than networking to make a sale or networking to build your network even. Think about it as a relationship. Think about it as making friends. You're a person, you're talking to another human being. And so you're just trying to make a connection. You're not trying to make a connection because you want to make a sale. It may or may not go that direction. It could be a connection that you make, that they make a referral to somebody else just because they liked you. So if you think about it, again, it's that mindset shift, right? Just look at it from a different perspective rather than looking at it as building relationships because you're trying to build your business. Just look at it as building relationships. Right? That's what you're looking at, and you're putting yourself out there, and that's the first step to it. Don't come at it with sales techniques. Just come at it with sharing your story and being interested in what the other person has to say.
I'm going to add to that because a lot of times, I mean, we do our virtual speed networking and it's great. And there are a lot of times where I interact with people who I might not be able to help. And, their business might not align with mine. However, you always want to know how you can help that person. And you always want to ask how you can help that person, because you might not be able to help them now, but you might know someone who can help them. So, keep that conversation open, because really, you might not be able to help them until a year from now. So like Candace said, it's a conversation. It's just like you're in line at Starbucks, way back when you could do that, and you met someone and you just strike up a conversation. And if it gels, it gels. And if it doesn't, maybe it's just in the back of your head to use for later.
Absolutely. Well, you never know where someone's journey is going to take them. You just don't, someone could launch a business in 2 years that they're going to need help from you with their business, to grow their business. They could do a brand partnership with you. You just never know where people are going to end up.
True indeed. And networking now, I know it's more difficult because it's all on screen. I have today I had a meeting before this, and then we have our 4:00 speed networking. So I have a full day of screen time. So, you always have to be 100. I always have to be excited and make sure that I'm engaged in what the other person has to say. But we also need to network with intention, right? So I know, Cass, you are networking with intention because you're trying to, make that sale. But how about looking at it from, so like how we just talked about your marketing strategy, maybe write down your networking strategy.
Yeah.
Who do you need to meet and why? Or what organization do you need to partner with? And who do you know who can introduce you to the people you need to meet? And then make sure when you meet these people, you already have a game plan as to how you can help them, because that's what they want to know. How can what you have to offer help them? And they will be your client. You won't have to sell. I can give you a great example. With our last event that we had with the Young Entrepreneurs Pitch Conference, I have a contact at BDC, and I really wanted to do this event, and we just had a conversation, and I threw out the event idea to her, and she's like, oh, that's cool. Do you know anyone who normally does pitch contests? I'm like, no. She's like, I know someone, and they're in BC. And we just had a phone conversation, and I did not even have to ask. By the time I finished laying out, the idea and, saying, do you mind if I pick your brain for some suggestions? It was, do you want us to just partner with you and we'll take care of that component? Sure, because they saw the value, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have that strategy.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Networking, man.
Modern Mississauga, yes. Jay is really good. We normally send out information on, he does quarterly online magazines now instead of in print. And he does have a pay what you can campaign for your business. You can pay, like, if normally a full page ad is $2,000, you can probably pay him $200. Like, just pay what you can. He's doing what he can for small business. So yes, Jay and Modern Mississauga is great.
All right. I got one more thing and then I'm done.
We got 3 minutes.
So if you're looking for an extra push, if you need someone to help take your strategy to amazing, I have opened up a few spots for some coaching, which I don't normally do. But if you're looking to really kick January off with a huge bang, with that spark, so you can really get started, I am doing this. So it's 5 intensive virtual sessions that are targeted to what you're doing. So everything that we'll be doing is based on your business. So this was more general. And then, so we can kick off in December. So it gives you things to work on. And then basically I'm going to give you all my secrets for tactical implementation. So I'm only opening up a few spots. If you are interested, feel free to email me. And we can talk specific. If you're looking to do a great social media strategy, we can talk specific. If you want to know about influencer marketing, we can talk specific. So this is, if you're looking to kind of take what we've done with the workbook and what we've done here today and really get specific with the tactics and the marketing strategy that you're building, this is definitely for you then. And so definitely email me and I can send you some more information about that.
And I will send everyone an email the latest sometime tonight. Just give me a chance to get through the next event with the replay of this video, the link for the download, as well as Candace's information so that you can take advantage of this. Karina is interested, Candace, so please copy her email address. So yes, you will all get this information, and definitely reach out to Candace, because how long have we known each other, Candace? Probably for about
2013.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was when I launched too.
Oh, wow. I was going to guess like
the other day.
That's amazing. That is amazing. So we've known each other for that long, okay? And Candace is forever in our lives. She is also a blog contributor. And, we trust in the work that she does because, she did help us with some stuff and makes us look good all the time. And, I like people to look good. So and you can tell from the content you got today that she knows her stuff. So thank you very much, Candace. Thank you, everyone who took your Saturday afternoon to be here. I mean, you're not supposed to be outside anyway, so might as well stay indoors and learn something. And I will send everyone Candace's information, like I said. But I believe it's Candace at songbbirdmarketing.com. Candace at songbbirdmarketing.com. But you will get this from us by tonight, I promise. I'm going to start the download right now, and then I will try to formulate that email. And some of you, I will see networking later on. We're going to do that every month, speed networking, because our strategy for 2021 is to stay indoors. So we're going to plan accordingly.
That's true.
All right, everyone enjoy. And I want to see everyone being all out there on their social media game. Like, get it all together. Tag us, Canadian Small Businesswoman in Songbird Marketing, so that we know that you're still doing what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
All right. Bye, everyone.